Welcome back to My Dad Watches The Bachelor. I'm Meredith, and I'm here with my co-host, my dad.
Good morning, Meredith. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. Doing good.
I think last night had a good episode. I'm a little upset because when we have fantasy suites, I mentally prepare to talk about sex with my dad. And I was not mentally prepared for us to be discussing sexual things today on the podcast. And then the first group date that we go on is the women writing their own erotic love stories.
Yeah, but the good thing is that they were pretty much totally bleeped out. I think we set a new record for bleeps on The Bachelor.
Okay, but the bad news is we now know that Chris Harrison wrote an erotic love story.
Well, so let's get right into that because that was one of my highlights. The fact that Chris Harrison is an erotica author of, some sort of, if you watch the show and listen to some of the readings from the show, and I don't know who that young lady was that was reading it, he's sort of into soft porn. So, and at first I did not believe this. And I did go to Amazon to see if that book was actually out there, and it's like only $6.99 for the Kindle version. So it is out there.
Well,
A perfect letter.
I put this as a low. I think I could have gone my whole life without knowing that Chris Harrison writes erotic love stories. He's, especially on The Bachelor, he's kind of like the group dad, and I don't think anyone really wants to know that about their dad. However, I would be open to the idea of an off-season book club as part of the podcast as we read through his novel together and discuss.
But you probably don't want your dad to be part of that podcast.
Oh, no, you definitely have to be part of it.
We'll take that one under advisement. I'm not sure. I don't have much of an interest in actually reading Chris Harrison's book. I just am continually fascinated as we pull back the onion of Chris Harris to see the many different parts of his life. So I sort of saw that as a high, although, as I said, probably not going to be buying that book.
Yeah, I don't think that I would be spending $6.99 on it either. I have quite a few books in my queue, and I'm not willing to add that to it anytime soon. We'll see how bored I get as the days progress.
So what sort of highlights did you have from last night's episode?
Well, as a high for me, I overall enjoyed the girls writing their own erotic love stories. I thought Anna was funny about how she wanted Matt to talk dirty to her, and her idea of talking dirty was Matt telling her that she's the only one left. I thought Victoria was very funny. She just, takes it to the next level. Katie is a big, sex talk person. We know that about her because she brought her vibrator to night one. And I think it's good to normalize sex talk among women. So I enjoyed the date for that aspect of it. Not so much the Chris Harrison writing an erotic novel and us having to talk about this when I was not mentally prepared for it.
Well, I just was amused by the very many bleeps and yeah, I think we got some idea of some of the conversation going on there, but it didn't seem to be rather embarrassing, although everyone seemed to take it in good spirits.
Yeah, it did seem like an amusing date. Everyone except Sarah took it in good spirits.
This is true. Poor Sarah was melting down the whole night.
Yeah, but we'll get to that. Let's keep with our highs. I quite enjoyed Serena P's one-on-one, and not so much like the date itself, but I like her as a person. I thought that her mindset going into her date was very refreshing. She talked about how she wanted to see if there was any chemistry between them and see if she's interested in Matt. She wasn't just falling at his feet because he's the Bachelor, and I like that about her. I also like that she makes fun of him. She asked Matt if he had any kids as a pet, and he was like, yeah, I had a turtle. And she just looks at him and is like, were you a weird kid? And that's something that I would say to a guy on a date too. So I just felt very relatable to me.
So little known fact, when I was a young kid, I would say probably 6 or 7, I had some pet turtles as well.
Ah, so you were a weird kid too.
I don't even know if I asked for pet turtles. I don't even know how I got pet turtles. And I had really no attachment to said pet turtles. I sort of remember that the whole turtle situation was sort of smelly and didn't do that much for me. The turtles did not seem particularly affectionate.
You
I
didn't
did,
find your turtles comforting in the way that Matt did?
no, not particularly. No, I got nothing out of the turtles other than the room they were in sort of smelled funky. So I probably avoided it. I did. I did appreciate and sort of put as a highlight the donkeys. You know, they seem to really enjoy getting in front of the camera and being part of the show. I was more pro donkey there.
Yeah, pro donkey, anti turtle. That's a hot take from My Dad Watches the Bachelor podcast.
That's why we have the people listening to us to get these hot takes.
Yeah. Also on the date, which we saw at the very end of the episode, if you keep watching after next time on The Bachelor, they show us a bit of like a blooper reel, and we got to see Matt having the hiccups, and it gave me a good chuckle because he just looks like such a dweeb, and I feel like we don't get a lot of personality from him, and I enjoyed seeing a more light-hearted side of him.
And I'll also mention that the continuing theme of make sure you take your bathing suit on the date because we're going to end up in a hot tub and you're going to see Matt's abs again.
Yeah, but it's a turtle bathing suit.
Well, I am surprised you even noticed after he took his shirt off.
Well, okay, that's fair. My last high comes from Queen Victoria. I'll talk about her more later, but she had this one quote that just gave me a really good laugh. She said, "If Matt sends Sarah home, I will literally want to bleep him." And I'm going to bleep myself there because they bleeped her. I imagine what word she said, but this wasn't even part of the erotic novel date. She just really throws out anything. And I've started to appreciate that more about her.
Okay, I Victoria's a little much for me. I find her, if she's here to be an entertainer, that's great, but it's really very difficult to take her seriously, and it's difficult to think that Matt or any guy is going to be taking her too seriously in this show. So if you want to be amused by Victoria, that's great, but I'm not seeing her as highlight reel material.
Okay, well, do you have any other highs you want to discuss?
Well, I suspect we'll get to it at some point. Whether we want to call it a high or something else, but just kudos to Katie for at least trying to comfort Sarah in some regard after the whole house had turned on her. Some of it brought upon her by herself, but there was a lot of mean girl stuff going on last night, and Katie seemed to be at least one person who tried to cut through that crap.
Yeah, I concur. I gave Katie my right reason of the episode because she was the only one to really check in on Sarah and say, like, it wasn't cool that everyone was ganging up on you. Like, I wasn't okay with that. And just being a friend for her to talk through her feelings with while she had her emotional and mental breakdown. And then they were able to bond over Sarah's dad's terminal illness and how Katie's dad had passed away. And I just think Katie is a class act.
I agree with you. I was, and that Katie was the person whose group date was interrupted, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So I thought that the fact that she came forward and did some comforting was doubly impressive.
Yes, I agree. Any other highs?
No other highs for me.
Okay, let's go into the lows. First off, my question to you of the episode. Why do you think Sarah fainted? Do you think it was for attention or medical reasons?
I think it was medical reasons. I think that these girls are probably hardly eating. These are long days, long nights, very stressful. And the woman already had a rose. I don't really think that she was doing it for attention.
I agree. I think it was medical reasons too. You know, I feel like as a young kid, when you do like chorus concerts and stuff like that, and in school, they teach you when you're standing up on those risers, do not lock your knees or else you're going down. And I think that Sarah, she might have locked her knees and could definitely medical reasons, not attention.
And I never knew about the knee locking advice there. So that's good advice for our listeners too.
Yeah. Another low for me. This is big. I had heard rumors of this, but I witnessed it for myself for the first time. Matt James kisses with his eyes open. This,
Didn't notice that.
I saw it for the first time when he was kissing Rachel on the group date. And I was like, really getting close to my screen. Like, are those the whites of his eyes? Are his eyes open? They're not all the way open, but like they are definitely not all the way closed. And it makes me very uncomfortable. So everyone should pay attention to that next episode.
Okay, I was not aware of this. My sources had not shared with me that this could be an issue, but it does seem a little bit strange. Don't know. Maybe he's just waiting. He needs to keep his eyes open because there's always another woman lurking around, and he might have to, retreat quickly from the kiss.
Yeah, that's probably not it, but nice try. And my last low was on Matt and Serena's P's one-on-one date. They made a little charcuterie board, and I was disappointed in Matt not. You don't even have to be an expert. I'm no expert in charcuterie boards, but he just seemed completely foreign to the idea. He said he doesn't like charcuterie boards. He's not a big wine guy. And their charcuterie board was on a cloth napkin. How much money do you think the Bachelor is shelling out to rent out the whole Nemacolin resort? Like, you can get them a freaking wooden board for their charcuterie. Jesus.
I think you're being a little judgy here in that I will tell you that when I was in my 20s, I very much doubt that I knew what a charcuterie board was. And that's something that came to me later in life. I do appreciate a good charcuterie board. Meats and cheeses are up my alley, but I'm not gonna go too hard on Matt James about it. The Bachelor could have found a board or something. Although I suspect it just would have been something else for the donkeys to chew on.
Well, as a 25-year-old, I can say confidently that I have been on multiple dates with other 20-something-year-olds who did know what charcuterie boards were and maybe even ordered them on said dates. So I think Matt James could improve upon his knowledge.
Well, I think Matt has room for improvement in many areas, but
I agree.
yeah, I mean, to me, the charcuterie board seems rather insignificant to some of his other shortcomings. But as far as my lowlights, there was just a little too much mean girl stuff going on last night. Way too many catty comments when Sarah was fainting, passing out, whatnot. That rubbed me the wrong way. The whole thing with Marilyn going home and Victoria staying, and since you and I discussed this, and you continue to tell me that the producers have some say in this, I'll sort of assume that's the reason that Victoria was staying. But it seems like Marilyn got the short end of the stick there when she didn't get a rose on Rose night, and Victoria did. Do you think anything is going through Victoria's thick head that she's always the person that's getting the last rose? Should that be telling her something?
I don't think she really cares. I think she's aware that she's not in it for the long haul. So she knows as long as she keeps up her antics, they're going to keep her around for a while.
Is her game to end up on Chlamydia Island?
I would imagine so. I think she would be a good candidate for the island.
Just because she's such a character.
Yeah, but sometimes characters go to the island and get a nice redemption arc. She could go to paradise and she could end up engaged, and we could just fall in love with Victoria.
I'm not thinking that's likely, but crazier things have happened, and I guess my other low light was at the group date that Sarah interrupted. All those girls after Sarah interrupted had lasers just coming out of their eyes, and when Matt came in, and he seemed to be cutting the date short to me, or maybe shorter than it needed to be, in that there was an interruption, and certainly got the sense that he didn't spend time with all of the ladies on that date, and they were all mad at Sarah, but I thought they should have been a little bit mad at Matt as well.
Yeah, I don't know if it was the editing that made it seem like he cut it short, but you could definitely tell they were pretty pissed off.
Yeah, that was pretty easy to tell that.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I'm guilty of this as well, but some women are not great at hiding their emotions through their facial expressions.
Well, I just found the way that whole thing transpired to be sort of a low. I don't think Sarah should have gone there. I don't think Matt handled his business well. Just not a good scene that evening, and some of the ladies got left out, and not a good scene.
Yeah, I agree with that. So, right reason, I already said mine was Katie for, taking time to talk to Sarah. Do you have a different right reason?
Well, I made mention of Katie, but also I put Serena P. I really like the fact that she was saying that she's falling in like with Matt, but she could see herself falling in love with him. And it just seemed so normal, and I shook my head. It seemed like such a normal thing to say, and a normal way that relationships should be progressing. It seemed very un-Bachelor-like. So I definitely liked that, and thought that Serena, I gave her the right reason, just because she wasn't falling at his feet, as you said, and seemed to be. And I really enjoyed her. She seemed to be an interesting person, and witty, and she seemed like she would be fun to be around. So I'm giving Serena my right reason.
So you think that saying you could see yourself falling in love with someone on the first date is normal?
I'm saying that I'm falling in like with you is normal, and there's a potential for more.
Okay, well, ladies that are listening, I would not recommend telling a guy on a first date that you could see yourself falling in love with him. Just a fun Meredith law for you.
Well, I would think in a normal date that's fine. I guess I'm just so accustomed to these ladies, gushing about, we have such a wonderful connection, blah 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 blah, and she just seemed to be more cool about it. So anyway.
Yeah, you got to play it cool. Got to play hard to get. That's what the guys like. Can't be crying all over him like Sarah does.
Well, apparently Matt doesn't mind that either. He seems to have the same reaction regardless of the approach at this point.
Yeah, he seems very simple-minded. Okay, we good
Go
with
ahead.
the right reason?
Yeah, let's move ahead.
Okay, wrong reason. I have two. Obviously, Sarah. She keeps saying, I knew what I was signing up for. I just didn't know it was going to be this hard. And I'm like, I don't really think you did know what you were signing up for. This is week 3 and you can't handle it now. Imagine if it was hometown episodes and he had met your parents, or you had fantasy suite with him and had sex with him. It's just going to get way worse. This is week 3. This is supposed to be the fun, lighthearted times. You obviously didn't know what you were signing up for.
Well, I agree, and I also had 2 down for the wrong reasons, and Sarah was one of them. The day after your dream date, I think she said that she's having this group date shoved down her throat, and it's like, come on, young lady, that's this. if you're going to be on this crazy show, that's what you're signing up for. So you seem to be out of your element and losing it. So she
Yeah.
was she was on my wrong reason list as well.
And Bree also had a one-on-one date last week, and they also had a good connection, had a good date. And Bree is how you handle the first one-on-one date. Like, you play it cool, you reference it a little in your group date, you keep yourself in his mind, and you don't have a mental breakdown about it.
Well, and there just seems to be a different maturity level there, forget the ages. I think Sarah's 24 or whatever. I don't think that's the issue. She just doesn't seem to be ready to handle the situations that are going to come up in the Bachelor show.
I agree. I did find it interesting that Sarah was allowed to just stay up in her room for multiple days while the girls were socializing or like waiting for Matt to come pick Serena up for their date. Like, is this a thing that the contestants can do? Just like opt out of events that they don't want to participate in? I feel like we need to know more about the rules and logistics of the show, because I find that very curious.
Well, that's sort of your area of expertise. I mean, it wasn't like she was missing any events other than all the girls sitting around being catty about her.
Yeah,
So
but her missing Matt coming to pick up Serena for their date like caused her to get extra time with Matt.
So, do you think that's a premeditated strategy, or just she was upset and locked herself in her room and wasn't going to come out?
I don't think it was premeditated. She doesn't seem that calculated to me.
I would agree. So, who else is on your wrong reason list? You said you had two.
Yep, it's Victoria, of course. Some of the stuff she was saying was funny, but I think she was just really going out of her way to make Sarah feel like shit, especially when Sarah was trying to apologize in front of the whole group, and Victoria's like looking around like, who is she talking to? Like, we do not know her heart. We don't know anything about her, blah, blah, blah. And I think sometimes we all have a little bit of Victoria in us, and we want to say snide and rude comments, but we have some sort of maturity which tells us to stop. And Victoria does not have any of that maturity.
Well, I think she's certainly a candidate to get kicked off of Twitter. She's got no self-control. So, I didn't even have her down as wrong reason, just because I guess I'm not even taking her particularly seriously throughout this thing. So the other wrong reason that I had was Matt. And I think this might be the second time that I've had Matt on my wrong reason. I'm just not convinced. Are we really sure that he's looking for love? Why did he get put in this position? I don't know. I just don't find him to be a very good host. And maybe that's because his hosting came so quickly after Tasha's season, where I thought she was great, and really seemed to work hard to make connections, and she seemed to be working hard to weed certain people out where she wasn't making connections. And I just sort of get the sense that Matt he just seems so bland, so vanilla, that he's not really suited for this, and he wants to be liked, but I think he's really not prepared to make difficult decisions.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it the wrong reason, but I think he's just not a good host like Tasha was, because Matt has no personality. He like you said, he's very vanilla. He seems very stiff. Like, he just doesn't seem like a funny guy. Like, Tasha wanted to have fun, have a good time with the guys. Like, Matt just it's not even that he seems serious. He just seems uncomfortable to me.
Yeah, I guess he's a nice guy. He seems like a nice guy, but I don't really feel I know him at this point in time.
Yeah, it's just very interesting because the Matt James that some of us came to know and love via TikTok and the quarantine crew was very like loose and lighthearted and had a lot of fun. And that is not really what we're seeing this season so far.
And with that said, getting in the situation where you're the bachelor and you've got 30 plus women vying for your heart, hey, that's a weird situation.
Sounds like a fun situation.
Yeah, I mean, I guess on one level it sounds like a fun situation, but I think once you get into it, it's harder than it sounds.
That's fair. Okay, I think we're good with Matt. Let's move on to my MVP. I think the MVP of the episode is Serena P. Like you said, she just seems very level-headed and normal, and I think that she's way too cool for Matt, and I would totally love to have her as a friend. I think she's the type of girl I would get along with, and I've said this before, but like I judge the women based on whether or not I would want to hang out with them, and Serena P is someone that I would want to hang out with, and I just really respect her for calling out Matt for being a weird kid and having a pet turtle.
Well, I think that's a good call, and I found it interesting in that before that date, I'm not sure if I can tell you pretty confidently if you had said which one's Serena P, I would have said I have no idea. I don't know which one Serena P is.
I completely agree.
Yeah, there are very few of these young ladies that I recognize at this point in time, and Serena P wasn't one of them, but she had real personality, so I think that's a good pick on your part.
Thank you.
And you should remember out there that if you have questions about any of this, you can send us email at mydadwatchesthebachelor@gmail.com, or you can use that Instagram thing.
Yeah, direct message. Yes. Do you have any fatherly advice to wrap us up?
So a few things came to mind as I watched the episode. Number one, when someone passes out or is in physical distress, please give them the benefit of the doubt and don't throw shade at them. And you're probably not always going to have a medic on duty. So if it's something serious, please call 911 and don't just stand around and say that person is trying to get attention. There is more to communicating than just talking. And this sort of comes back to that group date when it seemed very apparent to you and I that there were some upset people there that Matt should have noticed, that you really need to be sensitive to nonverbal cues, particularly when girls are shooting laser beams out of their eyes. You just might want to spend a little bit more time talking with them and trying to diffuse the situation. So be careful about that.
I think that's good advice.
Something that Katie said when she went back down after talking to Sarah about telling the other ladies to stay classy, I thought that was good advice. It's not good to dance on other people's misfortune. And whether you hate or like Sarah, there's a time to back off, and Katie seemed to know that. And after listening to the conversation that Katie and Sarah had, that felt very real and sobering. They both had some loss, and just made me think, hey, this is for everybody. I've got a dad out there who's in his 80s, and I worry about him. And you never know how long you're going to have your family around. So give them a hug, even if it's just a virtual hug, and go out there and appreciate them. So that's my last thought.
Well, what a sobering and depressing way to end the podcast. Thanks for that, Dad.
Well, I'm here to keep it real.
Okay. Well, you did it. Good job.
Okay.
Great way to start the day.
Well, remember, you can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all the other places.
Yep, you sure can. And you can rate and review us. It'd be super great. If you're still hanging with us at this point, you probably like the show, so give it 5 stars. Just because.
Okay.
All right. Well, join us next week as we discuss more of Matt's season from the right perspective and my dad's.